chapter 9 in Tractate Nazir, the last chapter. The subject I'd like to share with you today is mainly about those who are not commanded to be Nazir. Follow the Torah in Book of Numbers chapter 6, and I quote, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when a man or woman shall clearly utter a vow, the vow of Nazir, Nazirite, to consecrate himself to the Lord," and the same in Leviticus 27, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them." We derive from that the association of Nazirut applies solely to a fellow Jew, and therefore, since it's not applied to non-Jews, how do you treated an Eved, for example, a servant at that time, especially since there are certain items that it belongs to the Adon, to the master. So the Mishnah said as follows. We are on page 61. Hakutim. Kutim was the idol worshipping at that time. The different version, there are some use the net word of Dei Kochavim, idol worshipping. En lahem nezirut. So therefore, the three items we discuss in this chapter, or in general in this tractate, which is the prohibition against, the biblical prohibition against drinking wine, haircut, and contaminated to a dead body, does not apply to them. Even the Gemarrah in Menachot, page 73b, said that they allow to bring an offering and do a certain act of offering, but that's not in a matter of Nezirut. Nashim va'avadim yesh lahem Nezirut. However, since the Torah said in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 6, that the women does have the obligation, and we accepted the matter of Nezirut, so therefore, the same as Eved Knaani servant, we treated as one who obligated. Chomer benashim ba'avadim. There is a stringency applied in the case of women than in the case of a servant, a slave, which is shehu kofeh et avdo ve'ino kofeh et ishto, meaning the master can impose on his servant to drink wine, to contaminate the dead body. Even his matter of vow, it's effective. Later in the page, next page, 62b, we explain it. Versus the husband cannot force his wife to transgress her Nazirut, and therefore the Rosh said it's only conditioning of him annul, abrogated her vow, and then can applies. But as long as he's not hafarat Nedarim, he cannot force his wife to transgress her Nazirut. The source. The Gemara said, "Ktane hakutim en lahem nezirut menaha neimile," because the Torah said in Leviticus 22 that we treated them ish. The same is anyone else. So just for to ask why here it's different. What's this matter of vow? Tosfot said difference from all the others. The Tanu Rabbanan daber al bnei Israel velo leovdei kochavim. The Torah said, "Speak to the children of Israel." That's applied solely to a fellow Jew, and he say to them that serves to include slaves, that they also have the law of Nezirut. Lamali, why we need to add the slaves? Ha'amarta kol mitzvah she'isha chayavet ba evel chayav. But the same way as every mitzvah, the Gemara teaches in Tractate Chagiga, page 4, in a juxtaposition from the word la, two times. The same, Rosh said, the same applies to her, applies to Eved Knaani. So since we have the law of Nezirut that applies to women, it's also applied to servants. So why we need servants for extra pasuk? Amar Rava Shaneatam de'amar kra le'esor isar al nafsho, to bind his soul with a bond. And the sages expounded that this is referring to what? B'misha nafsho knuya lo. לא יחל דברו, the end of the pasuk, ככל היוצא מפיו יעשה. So that's specifically to someone who is independent, יצא עבד, שאין נפשו קנויה לו, but you can exclude the servant because his soul is not in his possessions, meaning you may say that physically, but he's not independent. הואיל ונפשו קנויה לו, because it's belonged to his אדוניו, to his master. אימה גבי נזיר נמי לו. You may think that since the Torah compare, make an hekesh, verbal analysis between Nedarim and Nazirut, Neder, Nazir, Leazir, the Torah said in Bamidbar chapter 6. So they said you may apply that here, this doesn't apply to any matter of Nazirut as well, and he cannot undertake this vow, notwithstanding the principle that slaves have similar halachot to women with regard to obligation, who can become Nazir. So therefore, kamash melan. So therefore, the Torah adds the word ve'amarta alehem, that Eved also can be a Nazir. So the Gra, the Vilna Gaon asked a question here. He said, with that school of thought, you mean to say that Avadim as servants obligated in the Ner Chanukah? If you have the Yesod, the only Yesod is that lo haya b'ota nes. He wasn't part of that miracle. Amar daber al bnei Israel v'lo lo'ovdei kochavim. The Torah said clearly, speak to children of Israel. So it means it's not applied to many of idolaters. ובכל אחד הכתיב ישראל עובדי כוכבים לא, והגבי ערכים. You see a situation, the Torah said in the book of Leviticus chapter 27, if someone committed something to the temple, so he needs to pay whatever he commit himself. That apply also, דכתיב דבר בני ישראל, ותיים בני ישראל מערכים בין עובדי כוכבים מערכים, יכול יהיו נערכים, תלמוד לומר איש. So the Torah said that if, for example, an idolater said, I undertake to donate the value of so-and-so, his vow does not take effect. So therefore, the Torah used the term ish, that if you have a fellow Jew that commit himself to valuation of a non-Jew, so he needs to pay it. So the Gemara said, Shaneacha here was different in the case of Nazir. The Amar Kra, Le'avivu li'imo lo yitama. He cannot contaminate it to his father or his mother. That every man, even a non-Jew, is included in halachot of valuation. So in some dinim it's not, but in this one yes. So יצא עובד כוכבים שאין לו אב, meaning in a sense you don't treat it an idolater in the same lineage. In that sense it's like have no father. So if you remember, we discussed the other day about the Shitat HaYereim. There is a book called Yereim. Follow that, so why you don't have a Tumat Ohel, the contamination of a tent to a Gentile. So the Keren Orai explains that's the source of the Mi'ut Le'avivu li'imo lo yitama. So the Gemara asks a question, Lemai, what exactly you exclude the idolater? That he's not considering someone of a father. If you tell me that this is applies to the law of inheritance, the Torah, isn't that the Ramar B'chia Baravin Amar Rabbi Yochanan Oved Kochim Yoresh Dvar Torah? Isn't that it said clearly that he inherited Shene'emar? They said in Deuteronomy chapter 2 verse 5, Ki Yerusha le'Esav natati et har Seir, meaning God gave to Esau the Mount Seir as an inheritance. So it means the idolaters go after the father. Ela b'mi shemuzal kibud aviv, the one who was warned by the Torah concerning the honor of his father. As the mitzvah to honor one's father does not apply to idolaters. it is as though he has no father. So the Rambam said, Yerusha le'Esav, maybe only Esav, only father, son, but not sister's brother. If you remember, the Gemara in Kiddushin speaks about someone who's become mumar. So the Chaim HaKadosh explained, what does that mean, Yerusha le'Esav? You know that God appeared to Yaakov and he said to them, Elokei Avraham Avicha ve'Elokei Yitzchak. So why is not the same language? Avicha. Torah said, Ki b'Yitzchak yikare lecha zara. It will not go to Esav. But also, Rabbi Akiva Iger explains that when you have a convert, someone who wasn't Jewish become Jewish, so he still have the obligation to honor his biological parents, because people should not misconstrue and think, oh, he convert, so he changed the rules and he's now free from honoring parents. So here, you can't say that he's exempt, because if you see an example in Bereshit about Ham, one of the children of Noach, he was punished. So again, the people should not misconstrue that now he changed his faith group, so now he's exempt. He's got less obligation. No. Miktiv kabed avicha gabei Nazir. Is it written honor your father in the context of a Nazirite? What is the connection between the two issues? So since the essence, the Rosh said that it's in regard to Yerusha, the inheritance, and you said that the altar deserve the inheritance by the biblical law, so we should say that also when it's come to Nazirite, Rabbeinu Tzar said. But again, you all depend upon one, that you recognize the father and the mother in a sense of lineage. Ela Amar Kra, you have to say that the text speaks about what? Le'aviv ule'imo lo yitama, for his father or for his mother, he shall not defile himself. So it means that the law of Nezirut, b'mi sheyesh lo tumah, the one who has the potential to become ritually impure. 61b, יצא עובד כוכבים שאין לו טומאה. We exclude a idolater that it's no any way for him to become ritually impure, because is doesn't have the same regulation as one of the assembly of the Jewish people. מניין לדללת לו טומאה, דאמר קרא ואיש אשר יטמא ולא יתחטא, ולכרתה הנפש ההיא מתוך הקהל. The Torah said in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 19 clearly, the state said, but the man who shall be impure and shall not purify himself, that soul shall be cut off from the midst of the assembly. So obviously, במי שיש לו קהל, part of the assembly, יצא זה שאין לו קהל, the Rosh explains, because the idolaters did not accepted the law of the Torah, they did not call part of our assembly. ממאי, דילמה כרתו דלא מחייו, אבל יתמוי ימית תמוי. You may say that he will not receive the punishment of that soul should be cut off. However, when it's come to a ritually impurity, if he touch a corpse and then touch any sanctified item, he become ritually impure. So the Gemara said, "Amar Krav vehiza hatahor ala tameh." When it's come to sprinkling the cleansing of sin offering, in order to purify someone who attached the corpse, the Torah said in the book of Numbers, chapter 19, the purified will sprinkle upon the impure. כל שיש לו טהרה יש לו טומאה, וכל שאין לו טהרה אין לו טומאה. Anyone who has the potential to be ritual impurity, then we hold that you have the potential to be purified, versus the one who does not have the possibility of attaining purity by means of the water or purification, does not have the potential for impurity either. So basically, Tosfot explain only the children of Israel, they have the process of purification by the פרה אדומה, by the red heifer. ואם הטהרה הוא דלא הביא לי, טומאה הביא לי, you may say that only purity by means of the water of purification it does not have, but it does have the potential of impurity. אמר קרא ואיש אשר יטמא ולא יתחטא. The Torah said in parshat Matot that a man who should be impure and should not purify himself. That you have here two different statutes, and both of them are interdependent. So one who cannot be purified by the water of purification cannot become impure in the first place. The way that there is a book called Afikei Yehuda. Afikei Yehuda explains that in Parashat Matot, when the Torah said Atem ushvichem, so the question is, what exactly it means? It is the tzrichim litaher. Why we need to litaher shvuyim? Why we need to purify the captivity? So the whole idea of the definition of eved, because of the eved. Tosfot said in Bava Kama that the whole idea of Isurei Hana'ah be'eved is derivative from that text. Rav Acha bar Yaakov amar shaneache, Nezirut is different from the Erchin because the prohibition is not involved with those idolaters. The Amar Kra v'itnachaltem otam livneichem achareichem. You should inherit it to your children, for your sons. And that's law of inheritance applies solely to children of Israel. Kol sheyesh lo nachala yesh lo din tumah. Anyone who has inheritance have the law of ritual impurity. V'chol she'ein lo nachala ein lo tumah. So the Gemarrah asks, ki hache avadim namei lo. So also the avadim, the servants should not have the law of Nezirut. L'amar Rabbi Shlam al gabei arachim. So he said, when it's come to valuations, so they said, שנאמר בני ישראל, בני ישראל מעריכים בין עובדי כוכבים מעריכים. יכול לא יהיו נערכים, תלמוד לומר איש איש. הכה, here in regards to נזירות, how we derive it, בני ישראל נוזרים מביאים קורבן, בין עובדי כוכבים נוזרים מביאים קורבן. Which means we, our people, can take a vow of Nezirut and bring a Nezirite offering, but those idolaters cannot both take the vow of Nezirut and bring the Nezirut offering. יכול אף לא יהיו נזירים כלל, so the idolaters will not be Nezirim at all. Talmud lomar ish, which means that that's included them. That they can become Neziri. So, Amrei mishum korban lav me'acha nafkela ela me'atam. Torah said, le'ola, prat le'nezirut divrei Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So the Torah said that that's le'ola, so that's excluded the offering of Nezirut, that those the idolater cannot bring. So it means you don't need to derive from Bnei Israel, because we already derived them from the word Le'olah. So you have to say that this Bnei Israel, sons of Israel, come to teach us that those idolaters doesn't hold the rule of Nezirut at all. You cannot derive them from the word Ish. So Eima Bnei Israel nozrim Nezirut Olam, Ven Ovdei Kochavim nozrim Nezirut Olam. You may say, all right, when it's come to Nezirut, to permanent Nezirut, as we learned in Mishnah on page 4, so that's applied to children of Israel. Versus them, they cannot take a vow, permanent vow, of permanent Nezirut, lifetime. יכול לא יהיו נזירים, תלמוד לומר איש, So they do have law of Nazirut. Amar Rabbi Yochanan miktiv Nazir olam. It said a permanent Nazir, since the verse does not specify a particular type of Nazirut, it excludes those idolaters from all type. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, not everyone hold that that's the statement, because it may be just miktiv Nazir olam. You mean to say that it's written a permanent Nazir? So, Eima Bnei Israel Madirim Bneihem Nazir, that they make those vows for the young sons, the young Nazirim. Ve'en Ovdei Kochavim Madirim Bneihem Nazir. And those idolaters cannot vow that the minor sons be Nazirai. So, therefore, Talmud Lomar Ish, which means the law of Nazirut when it's come to idolater, if they accept upon themselves. So here you see from the word Ish that those idolaters does have the law of Nazirut. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Alachai ben Nazir. You have to go by the idea of Halacha Moshe Sinai transmitted Halacha to Moses at Mount Sinai, that since the Halacha is not stated in the Torah, it cannot be excluded by a verse. You may said that the children of Israel is included everyone, right? So so it means to say that the children of Israel can shave for the Nizirut of the father, versus the idolaters. So the Rambam said that the whole idea of Arayot is not applied to Eved, because he doesn't violate anything. For example, Eved that have relation with his mother, so he's not begetter of Arayot. The Lechem Mishnah said, since we said Gershin Gayer Kekatan Shenulad Nami, that someone who convert is considering a new soul, a burning soul. So based on this Rambam, the Minchat Chinuch asks, so if he is released, he doesn't have any punishment. Why? These are not his parents. So the Velver of Brisk explained that he released the same as his parents. But the whole concept of Eved is Amma Domeh Lechamor, which means you don't ask, in a sense, the Chamor only if it's free, right? But the Pri Megadim have a basic, big discussion over that. If Eved Ivri is obligated in Netilat Yadayim, or you consider any action that he does as Maaseh Chamor. 62, Yachol lo Yehu, that is not even any idolater. Talmud Lomar Ish. So the Gemara responds, Rabbi Yochanan Lacha hi ben Nazir. That's Halacha Moshe Sinai. That it's clearly that's it. That it's Halacha Kenazir. So it's nothing much you can. Halacha ben Nazir. That's part of the Halacha Moshe Sinai. So you have to say the same as Rabbah, that the Bnei Israel, it's basically bring a mute from all the other Nazirut. So they are those who say that the idolaters go only by the Olah, because that's the language. Why? Because usually when they give everything to Hashem, or they give something to everything. Reb Chaim Volozhin it was an issue of Meshulochim, people come from Eretz Yisrael to collect, and they want money to the yeshiva, but it's part of Kiyum Torah, you cannot run away from that, which is the need for people to collect and get a cut. But that's the whole idea, that's part of Kiyum Torah, that you need to have those people who get their commission, because otherwise you don't have any solicitation at all. So again, it's all a question that you need to ask a permanent posek but in general you see an encouragement to go ahead and go by the nusach that you combine both sides and say it in a way that that people accept it. But what Rabbi Yochanan said, it's Aloch Moshe Sinai, and it's not clearly in the Torah, it's just derivative.